俺は悪魔の王子ベルゼブブ。よう言ってみろ。
Hey everyone, Rascal here, and Mama. Welcome to our podcast and channel, Paws On Animation. In today's podcast, we're covering the Sandland series exclusively on Hulu. Now, this series is based on Akira Toriyama's 2000s manga of the same name, and the anime itself was released after Toriyama's passing, a literal cash grab for Disney, and is a post-apocalyptic adventure set in a desert world where water is scarce, and a trio of unlikely friends work together to save what remains of the land. But before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, for occasionally some future podcasts and little pause videos. Yes, thanks for joining us for this podcast, subscribing, sharing our videos, and so much more. We really appreciate you a lot. Yes. So as we mentioned, this is based on a manga that originally ran from May of 2000 to August of 2000. And the manga has one volume. Oh, that is it. It's a very short story, but I guess it's a big volume. And its genres are adventure, sci-fi, comedy, but it also should be post-apocalyptic, as we mentioned. Yes, because that is the setting. And we heard about this series, like we said, after Toriyama had passed, and about a few days later, Disney and Hulu announced on Twitter that the Sandland anime, which no one even really knew about, was coming to Hulu within a few days. And people felt kind of insulted because no one knew that this anime was in production. They just decided, hey, it's coming out this week. Honor Toriyama by watching this, and it kind of felt like a slap in the face to his fans. Now, what's interesting is back in August of 2023, there was an anime film produced by Sunrise Kamikaze Dauga in Anima that was 106 minutes. If any of you guys know about this anime film, let us know in the comments. Yes, because we sure as heck did not know about it. And we had heard about the series for a while, and we waited for people to talk about it since we were actually at that time starting to get interested in Dragon Ball. And after it was announced, there was nothing else online. There was no promotional material from Disney or Hulu. There was no talk about it on Twitter. It was not trending or anything, so we weren't sure what happened. We watched the show for ourselves after we got our Hulu account, and it was, unfortunately for us, it didn't really hit. Like, we knew it was going to be totally different from Dragon Ball. They made it obvious. Similar in ways in terms of character designs, personalities, and a few other things. Right. But as you were watching it, you expecting, okay, well, it's not Dragon Ball, but it could still be something on its own merit and interesting. And in a way, yes. And I think this ended up inspiring Trigun Stampede because it has an oddly similar feel to it with the design of the planet they're on and the type of storyline it is. I feel like they were inspired by the Sandland manga, and maybe the Sandland anime was inspired by Trigun Stampede because it almost feels like they're trying to copy the style and the feel of that show. And so many of the characters, when you were seeing them and hearing them talk and seeing their behavior, you could pick out what Dragon Ball characters they definitely reflected. Right. And that kind of made it also more of like, well, he maybe like Rumiko Takahashi. Yeah. He was inspired to create this based on characters he loved, wanting them to get another life. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that, and we actually applaud that because in this instance, the majority of them are really different. But they're similar enough for you to go, okay, well, this one's supposed to be Goku. Right. And this one's supposed to be Piccolo. And you know, just by their personalities and things that are going on, even though the majority of them, I would say 80% look vastly different from the Dragon Ball characters. Yes. And in this world also, you still have the elements of demons and things like you did in Dragon Ball. Right. They're more heavily, have a heavier presence in this anime. Where in this world, if it's sort of like a wasteland, they have demons ruling their own kingdom. And one of the biggest core parts of it, as on his adventures, that is focused on a demon prince and trying to prove himself that he can be a good leader and a good king when it's time for him to rule. And in here, the demons are not supposed to be seen as evil. They're misunderstood people that are seen as evil. Even though they kind of admit, yeah, they do some shady things, but it was wrong for humans to judge the demons because the humans sometimes act worse than demons themselves. They're just trying to make it just as much as the humans. So it was a sort of...
It's self-same.
Yes. Yes. And it was a very odd thing, but considering... Right.
Season 2.
Right. But now when we think about it, we've got Has-Been Hotel, we've got Hell of a Boss, we got, like you said, Promised Neverland's anime changes. These have similar works where they want to show the demons have their own society or are actually good, or it's a whole other thing to be fascinated with. So, thinking about it, Toriyama probably started the whole trend with this manga.
So we'll quickly talk about the characters and the voice actors. And to let you know quickly, Disney was very cheap in terms of not hiring VAs we would know. The most money went out on Keith Silverstein and Kira Buckland. Everyone else are people that we are not
Really?
with
Oh my gosh.
What they did do is to make sure that some of the characters sounded like Dragon Ball characters with the voice actors. For example, the main character, Beelzebub, who we'll just call B, who is literally named after the biblical demon and is the son of Lucifer and the prince of demons in here.
Yes.
He was voiced by Risa May. I have no idea who she is.
No, not me either.
And he ends up being mistrusted at first, or distrusted, I should say, at first. But he ends up earning the trust of the people he ends up with by his actions.
Right.
And one of the main things they were looking for is water.
Yes. And that was pretty much the entire series. Found what happened to the water and restoring it to people, which is why it was such a desert-like wasteland. Again, reminds you a lot of Trigun. And in a similar fashion to the anime, they tried to mix a blend of 2D and 3D by having Toriyama's designs on 3D models, but giving them a layer of 2D to make it look like they were more, I guess, had more dimensions to them. The problem is that it does look like his style for the most part, but when the characters start to move around a lot, the animation starts to look kind of buggy, like something didn't finish rendering. Not horrible, but it just looks kind of off. Where Trigun had it to a point where you got adjusted pretty quickly, and they did lots of fantastic camera angles and animation cuts and things to it to make it stand out and didn't look like it was something of lower quality. They tried their best to make it look visually striking. Sandland just looks like, okay, this is Toriyama's style. They're trying something different, and there's nothing else that sticks out about it.
Now this character is clearly supposed to be like Goku. He has enhanced sight and demonic strength, and by basking in the moonlight, he can absorb the power of darkness, which he unleashes to temporarily boost his strength and demonic powers. It was obvious he was supposed to sound like Goku and be like Goku.
Yeah.
We had Rao, voiced by John Lippo, elderly man and sheriff of the small village, and he seeks to free the people of Sandland from the king's pocket.
Yes.
And he was formerly known as General Shiba.
Yes. And yes, they still keep in those theme names like Dragon Ball too, but you gotta really pay attention to see what they're parodying. So.
Another character named Thief, voiced by Owen Thomas, and he claimed to actually be much older than B.
Okay.
And he was supposed to have wisdom.
Yes.
And he's recruited by B because he's known for stealing and his great wisdom. Go figure. You have General Ari, voiced by Andrew Lander, who was Rao's replacement in the king's army. And his father died during the raid. And of course, he wanted to find out who and why.
Yep, one of those stories.
General Zoe, Z-E-U, voiced by Sean Smith, who was the true antagonist of Sandland. And he's the agent commander of the king's army.
Yes. And as you see these characters as the story goes on, like you said, you do think a little bit of Dragon Ball. But the story towards the end of the series, this is a one and done series because by the time it gets to the end, they do succeed in their mission. So there are no extra seasons coming. It's a limited series. The biggest problem with this is the pacing of it. I get they're trying to tell the whole story in 12 episodes, but you can't tell what was the pacing supposed to be because some parts it was going too slow, and towards the end it was going too fast. Like they were trying to get the big battle, the big moments, the emotional stuff, the tragedy, the final battle, everything trying to get done within the 20-minute things.
Right.
If it's on Hulu, it's on streaming, you can extend the episodes however you want. So I'm not sure if it's just they planned this and it didn't execute well, or it's the fault of Disney or Hulu getting involved and messing with the story and trying to get the product out quickly so they could cash in on the author's passing.
Right. So a few more characters I'll mention. Lucifer, voiced by Keith Silverstein.
Yes.
King of the Demons and Bee's dad. Papa, the leader of the Swimmers, the self-proclaimed greatest criminals in Sandland.
Oh my gosh.
Pike, who we saw a lot of, who was a member of the Skimmers, who wears a necktie and no shirt, and is effeminate.
Yeah, and yeah. Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay.
And we have Shark, voiced by Rick Zeef. He was also a member of the Swimmers, who wears a blazer and no shirt.
It's like, yeah, there's a theme here. A lot of these characters don't wear a lot of clothes. I guess because the desert, they don't need it.
Guppy's the fat member. And then you have a character voiced by Akira Buckland coming in named Anne. And it was obvious she was supposed to be Bulma.
Yeah, very obvious. And I think for me, the most disappointing part about this anime that it missed out on is that the characters were not incredibly memorable, and you did not feel attached to them as the story went on. You tried, we definitely tried as we started, and tried to see what were the parts we liked about the characters and the journey. But as it got towards the end, and it got to the big battle, and you were supposed to worry about these characters, it just didn't feel an attachment to anybody in the story.
True. Quickly, I want to point that Anne's character was revealed to be Forest Land's princess and a half demon. Her mom, Queen Lilith, was Beast's older sister.
Makes sense.
So they made him her uncle.
Yeah, and they got to use Lilith a lot recently when they want to have the backgrounds from these biblical events. They like to use Lilith a lot.
The manga was well received, being called the ultimate disposable comic, executed perfectly, one and done. The anime itself, it depends on whom you talk to. Some praised it, some thought that it could have used more work, some thought that it touched on the impacts of war, global warming, and corporate greed, but it didn't overcomplicate things. And some said it was nothing particularly revolutionary about it. It could have been shorter in length. Now, it's funny because we were saying it needed to be longer
to flesh
to expound upon things, right? So, this is something that we watched, and we're glad we did. But for me, and I think for you as well, right now, Dragon Ball is the ultimate. We're currently reading Dragon Ball Z and watching the Dragon Ball anime. We already read the manga, which we did a podcast for. And when we're done with the Dragon Ball Z manga, we will go ahead and forge into the anime. We're also concurrently watching the Dragon Ball movies in order. They're all on Crunchyroll.
Right.
Except for Broly, we saw
on Hulu, actually.
Super Broly, and it was fantastic and amazing and exciting and wow.
Yes, yes.
So back to Sandland. We've watched it, and we're glad we got to watch and see something else that he did. Another idea, concept that he was trying to execute. But for me, right now, Dragon Ball is the ultimate.
Yes.
If you've seen Sandland, let us know in the comments. How do you think it fared? How would you compare it to his original Dragon Ball work? Do you think it should have had a longer life, or was it just really a one and done series like the manga?
All right.
If you haven't seen it, it's available exclusively on Hulu to stream. 12 episodes. Give it a watch. Come back. Tell us what you think.
And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, looking for your anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us again. As always,
you are specials. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting flashing like